On the government side, are you aware if there are any policies or bills in the house?
You see that government is trying to encourage renewable energy, but the people at the customs, they are either directly or claiming to be uninformed or turning a blind eye and turning deaf ears to it. Government would give you a rebate on something, customs will claim that they're not aware of it, so you just have to pay the money. He said what the customs guy make them go through to import inverter batteries. The only few guys want to do it, and you still pay penalty because you have mind though, you are bringing this thing, you must breach. Let's frustrate you. So it's because Nigeria has so much gas reserves that it will drive down the cost of energy so low if we go more CNG. You know, the call for people to abandon the national grid, they may seem unpatriotic, but they're not too realistic. The national grid has to exist. It's the way to get affordable energy, to be honest.
What advice would you give to developers in the real estate sector?
Nigerian builders are slow adapters. The builders are from the people. People don't adapt easily, same with the builders. They just like what they like, and I don't think the market will demand it.
Okay.
But there are usually conditions in place that will force you to demand it. And if you as a builder, you are building for a company like Shell, I have this on authority because I have had a client who built something for them. They requested for it that part of what we're going to buy into your estate is that you must have renewable. It may not be entirely, but must be part of your processes. So there are some companies now that, for a real estate, what would be sweeter than building 200 units and one company says, I'll take everything. And also there are also some funds, some housing funds, if you want to build and you're trying to get funds from countries, funds outside the country, some of them have it as conditions to fund your projects.
Yes. You are welcome to another lovely episode of Square Meter Stories, and I'm your host, Isi Edagese. Now, before I get into introducing our guest for today, here's a bit of background on what we'll be discussing. In recent times, there has been a lot of push towards green energy and finding energy-efficient solutions, especially for a climate like ours in Nigeria. So today, our guest is an innovator, a thought leader, a renewable energy advocate. He has a strong background in ICT and a bachelor's degree in engineering. He is dedicated to advancing technology and sustainability. In 2007, he played a pivotal role in developing Nigeria's inaugural university-wide intranet, Cleon Unwired, showcasing his early commitment to transformative tech solutions. Recognized for his environmental advocacy, he was appointed as one of Nigeria's first LED ambassadors in 2013, promoting energy-efficient practices and sustainability. As co-founder of Brainsbridge Energy Limited, he spearheads initiatives aimed at democratizing access to clean energy. His leadership at Brainsbridge focuses on educating business leaders about energy sustainability, consulting on energy management, and reducing operational costs through innovative energy solutions. He continues to inspire and lead by example, driving the conversation on sustainable development and technological innovation in Nigeria and beyond. Join me in welcoming my guest for today, Rotimi Babalogbon. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
It's good having you here.
Same here.
So, like I said at the beginning, there has been a lot of push in recent times. Everybody the world over is talking about green energy, sustainable energy, energy-efficient solutions. And such a conversation becomes very important considering our climate and the energy issues we have. So I think this is a topic that for home builders, for developers, and generally for everybody, getting educated about it, the right solutions for your home, the right solutions for your offices, and is it sustainable, is it efficient, is it cost-wise? Those are discussions that I think we need to have. So once again, thank you for being here with us.
I'm delighted to be here. It's a pleasure.
Thank you very much. So let's get into it. When we talk about sustainability, energy-wise, what exactly are we talking about?
Okay, so one of the very easy to forget terms about energy is that that people really, really, really don't realize they've forgotten, but it's really true, is that energy is an expendable resource. You know, if you build a bridge, 100 years, if nothing happens, the bridge will still be there. But if you generate 10 kilowatt of energy today, if you don't store it and you don't use it, tomorrow it will not be there again. So that's where sustainability comes from. It comes about from knowing that I can always guarantee that I have this amount of energy on a day-to-day basis. A lot of practices we've had in the past do not guarantee that. They have energy today, tomorrow they don't have energy. It's like cooking with firewood. If you don't store the firewood well and it rains, it takes a while before the firewood catches fire the next day. So sustainability really is about getting to that point where you know that, at least I know that if I turn on my light bulb, turn on my fan, I have it. I may not have AC, but every day, whether I have money or not, I can always have this to use for my home or for my business. So that's what sustainability really is about. Yeah.
Now, there's a term also that seems to be catching on in the real estate sector, and that's green building.
Yeah.
What is that?
Okay, so there's a building called The Edge in Netherlands. That it was built, I think, in 2013, 2014. So the idea of a green building is a building that has minimal environmental disruption. So what it means is that the amount of water it uses does not cost the environment a lot. The amount of sunlight that goes to it does not go to waste. The amount of papers, of course, they go as far as saying, let's be paperless, because for there to be a paper, it means a tree was cut.
Yeah.
So, but basically in its use, it's mostly about the use of water, particularly the use of energy. If a building can run on 100 kilowatts, don't pour it 1,000 kilowatts generator, because you will produce a lot more fumes. So The Edge I mentioned earlier is a building in Netherlands. The roof is full of solar panels. The walls are also covered with solar panels. In fact, I think some of the glasses they use transparent photovoltaic cells. So it generates enough power by itself. So it has a lot of practices, like if you leave dining room and there's nobody there, the lights go off. So the building was designed to use as little energy as possible, so that the energy it can generate by itself runs the building, and there's enough for cloudy days, snowy days. So a green building is a building that has minimal negative environmental impact. So it goes from as little as use as small a gen as possible if you have to use a gen, or if you are not in a room, turn off the lights, turn off the ACs. Basically, the less energy you use, the less carbon footprint you create. And so that's basically a green energy. But of course, it extends into water usage as well. So there are things like water storage, rain collection systems, where the rain that falls on your building, it goes into a tank, so you don't use too much from a borehole. Your toilet, your watering of your garden is the rainwater you use. The water you use from a borehole is strictly for drinking. So green building goes as far as that.
Is such a solution feasible and wise? Is it a smart solution for the normal builder in Nigeria to look into? Because what you're talking about, in my mind, sounds like it's expensive. And already, we already are complaining about the cost of housing in Nigeria.
Unfortunately.
So if you're going to put these type of solutions into a building, is it really going to be something the market would look at and say, yes, I see the value in this and I want it?
Okay, so there's a yes and no answer. So the yes answer is, it is going to be expensive, but if you want to do it, it's something the market will want. I don't think the market will demand it.
Okay.
But there are usually conditions in place that will force you to demand it. And I'll give you two examples. In 2015, thereabout, Total Energies bought a company called, I think it's called Sun Power. I'll have to confirm that. Which also, they were beginning to pivot towards renewable energy. Shell also acquired Olon, and then they've been acquiring other companies. I think they even acquired Daystar Power 2 years ago. So if you as a builder, you are building for a company like Shell, I have this on authority because I have had a client who built something for them. They requested for it that part of what we're going to buy into your estate is that you must have renewable. It may not be entirely, but must be part of your processes. So there are some companies now that, for a real estate, what would be sweeter than building 200 units and one company says, I'll take everything. But they say our condition is that you must have renewable energy before we buy it from you. So yes, but is there demand in the market organically? No. But there is a first demand. And usually it's when the customer makes the prerequisite for acquisition. I will only buy a building if I know you have solar panels on the roof. It doesn't have to carry everything, but you just need to know that it's part of my goal as a business owner or as a company. We only put our money where, so they have a quota they have to meet. And by doing that, there are carbon credits. They can say, okay, we put our money into this project. It has earned us this much carbon credits, because carbon credits really is a system of exchange.
Yes.
Yeah, so organically, there's no demand. Now, it is expensive. It adds to your costs. There's no organic demand. The regular person doesn't care about it. The regular person wants to know, is there water, is there light? Whether it's gen or some solar, they don't really care. But there are organizations that have made it a part of their demands. And also, there are also some funds, some housing funds, if you want to build and you're trying to get funds from countries, funds outside the country, some of them have it as conditions to fund your projects.
Yes, because I do have a friend that developed some units, 2 bedrooms in Lekki, Ilasan, this axis of Lekki. And he told me about what you just mentioned, that there are funds from foreign donors now.
Yeah, exactly.
That if you are incorporating green energy into your building, you are qualified for it, you can access. So in my mind, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, for us as developers, talking about us now, you're on the energy part of it.
I'm also a developer too, although I'm on the energy part that the actual building. Yeah.
For us as developers, I look at that and I'm like, one of the issues we always have, of course, is funding.
Yeah.
So if there's a fund like that we can access by incorporating
renewable energy,
renewable energy, I think it's a great deal.
It is. The information is not out there, but it's. I mean, I'm aware of. As at 2 points, I'm aware of that there were conditions under which they secured funding, renewable energy.
Does gas solutions come under this renewable energy?
Okay, so they call it renewable energy, but once you incorporate gas, you now call it clean energy.
Okay.
So now here's the crazy part.
So there's a difference: clean energy.
Clean energy. So when a company says they're a clean energy company, it means they also have gas.
Okay.
The company says they're renewable energy, it means it's wind, hydro, and solar.
Okay.
Those 3. So what clean energy means, they've added gas to it. Now, why is clean energy is that? Now, the reason gas is not renewable energy is that if you use the gas, it's gone.
It's gone.
So that was just clean energy. But it's clean energy because CNG is safer for the environment. So when you burn diesel or petrol, you produce CO2, carbon dioxide. When you burn CNG, you produce water. And little CO2, but more of water. Because CNG is methane. Methane is CH4, so it's more hydrogen than carbon. But in petrol, the carbon molecules are more. So, and also when it comes to the greenhouse effect, when you release methane to the atmosphere, it traps more heat, 6 times as much heat as CO2. So CNG is more dangerous to the atmosphere when it's released than CO2. So when you say that you are going to burn it, it's better for the environment. It's a very funny position to be.
Now here's where it gets kind of tricky for me. I was reading on global emissions, and Nigeria is almost not on the spectrum.
No, we're not in the top 30. We're not in the top 30.
So what really is the incentive for a country like Nigeria to bother itself to say, okay, maybe the government is pushing renewable energy solutions? Because I know the government is trying to come up with solutions with policies that will push more renewable solutions in our day-to-day lives. But considering the fact that we are so low on the spectrum,
we're not even in the top 30.
We are not even in that bracket. Why should we be disturbing ourselves about renewable solutions, especially if we look at the cost advantages or the cost implications of going in that route?
Okay. Mostly it's because there's the world is now a global village. So Nigeria is not existing in isolation. So ultimately, we have to do things that make our trade partners comfortable.
Okay.
Yeah, but in terms of emissions, Nigeria is not even in the top 30. But what Nigeria should have done, on the other hand, is to then focus on selling carbon credits. Unfortunately, there's no established carbon credit market in Africa. So our carbon credits go for very, very little value.
Okay.
But a few years ago, I think around 2020, I got on the call with a commissioner for Akwa Ibom, and I told him about. I said, "You guys know you have large forests that you can sell carbon credits." He said they would get back to me. I said, "Yeah, it's funny that there's a team that was assembled in 2011 to put together a program so they can try to sell carbon credits for Akwa Ibom State. But yeah, they never did anything. In fact, that was 9 years later. If you had to go and look who was a member for they just abandoned halfway. So why Nigeria should bother is that there is a potential to earn money from the carbon credit market. Now, that potential might not come in direct cash for us, but it can come in as rebate for electric vehicles, come in as rebate for electric cars, CNG cars. It can come as credit for other things that can help the country. So, but in terms of emission scale, Nigeria really shouldn't worry. But like I said, it's a global village. Nigeria works directly, closely with Turkey, China, US, and those countries are high on this list. So, ultimately, whatever is good for the whole world is good for Nigeria. So yeah, that's why we should, because there are economic incentives in the long term. Yeah.
So next question I want to ask is, what are the most energy efficient technologies being adopted right now? And how can it reduce operational costs? Because aside from even being a business owner, from someone that runs a home, you are looking for how to cut costs.
Yeah.
So what's energy efficient solutions? Yes, there's solar, but aside from solar, what else can people look into to help them save costs?
There are some parts that are easier for you as a homeowner or the landlord or the person building. And there are parts that are easier for you as a tenant. As a landlord, you have all liberty. Tenant has restrictions. So one of them is double glazing. So double glazing is a system of windows where they use 2 layers of glass. So in the ideal situation, you have a vacuum in between. So what that does is that it lets the AC in your room sit a little longer than it would normally. Because when you turn on your AC and you turn it off, depending on how hot the external wall is, within 10-15 minutes your place heats up a lot. But if you're using a double glazed window, it could double that time. So that's something. Now, like I said, that's easier for the landlord or the homeowner to implement. A tenant, you won't change your windows double glaze. Because double glaze simply means you are paying double for glass. You're also buying a bigger aluminum profile, which also costs more. The workmanship also increases. So it's pretty much like double the price of window at the simple scale term. That's one. Another one, this one that the tenants can implement is using door brushes. So if you look under the door, like that door there, you see there's a gap there. So the AC in here also escapes. So the key thing is keeping your cost of cooling minimal.
Okay.
And by reducing how much of the cooling escapes. That's one of the ways to do that. So double glazing, using door brushes. So there are some door brushes that have rubber, they will seal the room so that it doesn't escape at all. So that's it. And then there are other techniques like using insulated walls. I saw this in Abuja. It was actually a church. So what they did was they had, so they this probably is 6-inch or a 9-inch block. So what they did was they put a 6-inch block. They put what you call polystyrene, or that's the word polystyrene, but they're like shock absorbers, or any other thermal insulator. There are some rock wools too, like glass fiber rock wools, or those ones used for ducted ACs. So they put it on over the wall, and they now put a 4-inch block on the second wall. So although the reason they did that was not for cooling, well, because neighbors complained of noise, and let's just have it double. So they did that, put polystyrene on the whole wall, and put another layer of block. So what that does is that the amount of AC that leaks through the wall is reduced as well. Of course, that cannot be done by tenants. And it's also easier done when you're building than, because if you have a room that's already 10 square meters, putting another layer of blocks reduces the room. So that's something. But the door rubber, flushing door rubber and stoppers are things you can do as a tenant. Now, one other one that is not popular in Nigeria, which I think should be popular, is what they call radiative cooling. Now, radiative cooling is reflecting back infrared. So the reason we have so much heat in this area is because the tropical area, that's the equatorial region where Nigeria is, we're the closest to the sun. So almost all the infrared hits here first before it hits the northern hemisphere. So why I'm surprised that radiative cooling is not popular in Nigeria. Radiative cooling, what it does is they have special paints that you put on your roof and your outer walls. They don't allow they bounce back the infrared. So the heating, because the reason sunlight is hot is the infrared.
Yeah.
So the part of the sun's rays that heats up the body, heats up the building, the paint outside will reflect it back. So it's called radiative cooling.
Now, is it just any kind of paint, or there are special paints that
No.
achieve that?
There are special paints. They are called radiative paints.
Okay.
That's what. But I know I googled on Gigi. Somebody put a number there, but had no picture of it. I know some people on Gigi, they read about somebody like, let me listen. If there's demand, I'll import it. Yeah, but I was happy that one person actually had an entry. There was no image, so it means he wants to just test the market. But yeah, there are paints like that. And I mean, we have companies like Dulux and Co in Nigeria. I don't know why they didn't think of making it, because it will reduce your, in fact, you won't need cooling. If all the infrared or most of it, your ceiling reflects it, your walls, outer walls, of course, it means our houses will be white. I mean, if you've ever wondered why all those beach towns in Greece, Santorini, why they're white, that's why they're white.
That's why they're white.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's radiative cooling. So it simply means that a region in Nigeria will have to just adopt and say, this is our new rule. If you're building here,
you must use
white building and use radiative cooling. So, I mean, the roofing sheet companies like the Nigerian and Co could actually incorporate into the sheets from on the onset. But what they do is that they sell insulated roofs. I don't know if you've seen those.
Yeah.
So they sell those. What those do is that they reduce the transmission from the roof to the members by putting polystyrene.
Okay.
But it's a lot simpler if you just use paint. It will save you money as well, you know. So radiative cooling is something that we should do. But in places like India, interestingly, Iraq and Egypt, I think it's in Egypt, there's something they call wind catchers. I've been looking for pictures. I think I've seen a picture of olden days canoe in the 1940s that had what they call wind catchers. So the way wind catcher works, a wind catcher is like a chimney. So the roof of inside the buildings will taper like that, and at the center you have a pipe that goes up. So what it does is, because heat rises, so when your house is hot, the heat rises to the roof, and because we've made it like this, they will concentrate at the center and go out of the building. And then the plate opens at the wall, the lower area, so it's like sucking with a straw.
Okay.
So when the heat goes out, it sucks in cooler air. So in places like Iraq, in the desert, ancient Egypt, in fact, in some parts of Iraq, they even preserve food like that. They put pots, put the wind catchers, and they could. In fact, they said the temperature goes as low as 4 degrees Celsius. ACs today stop at 16. Using wind catchers can get as low as 4 degrees if you get these conditions right. So that's a local technology, but like I said, it's hardly ever discussed. You know, there's a field in architecture called vernacular architecture. It's when you take those local practices and you incorporate them. Yeah. So, but we don't have a lot of them.
You know why I find this discussion, what you're mentioning, very interesting. I was watching, the wildfires that took place recently in California.
Man.
So I was watching someone, and there has always been this question that why do Americans build with, let's just say it's Paco. Exactly. Why do they build with Paco, with wood? There's always been that question in my mind. So that guy explained it when he said it's a cultural thing, right? So that's how they've been building right from way back. So it just continued it. And, he asked a very pertinent question, sir. What other traditions or cultures is going on where you live? And, now that you're mentioning all these things, everybody just builds basically the same way.
The same way.
Just mix your cement, do your blocks.
Nobody asks questions.
Nobody asks questions. People don't look and say, how can I do it differently? What can I incorporate to make it better? And listening to you talk about the various kind of solutions that can help people save on energy.
A lot.
Nigeria has this thing of once it's one thing someone is doing, everybody goes in that direction. Nobody says, okay, how can we do it differently?
We're very slow in adopting things. Very slow.
Very slow. Because right now, the in thing with everywhere you go is solar, inverters. Everybody is like, that's the only solution they know when it comes to energy efficiency, solar. But from what you're mentioning, there are so many different things that can be incorporated.
There are air conditioners that are called evaporative coolers. Unfortunately, the people that brought them to Nigeria are event people. If you go to outdoor events, you see those fans that blow mist fans. Yeah. There are actually air conditioners that were designed like that. They're called evaporative coolers. The problem is that they're big. They're not small. You have this tiny, slim ACs looking cool. Yeah. Now, those are usually very big, but they consume only 20% of the energy these regular ACs for the same effect.
Serious?
So when you need 3 kilowatts to power 4 ACs, those ones, 3 or 4 of them will take only 600 watts, 600, 500 watts.
Why aren't we looking more into those type of
So
things? Just because they are big.
They are big. You know, people like the fact that you can look at an 8 flat building and just see small aces outside. If you use those, they are probably like 4 times the size of those. So they are a lot easier when it's a single. You are the only one in the building. You can just have a giant unit outside and take it to your rooms. But when you have different tenants, it's not self-feasible. And they are much more easily incorporated at the beginning. Although some guys have built newer ones, but they're not yet popular.
But looking at that, I don't know if it's a solution, in the sense that you can have an area in your development where you have those ACs stationed, and then channel it into every unit. And
they use
probably
ducts,
just have
exactly.
with a duct into every unit.
So
and probably have a thermostat in the house, so if the person wants to, control.
Okay, so I'll explain
how much of it comes into
how
his
it works
apartment.
in the energy. They call them dampers. So if you install dampers, each person controls his own humidity, how close, and then some of those dampers come with smart systems that can also measure, because if it's a central system everybody's using, the guy that uses more should pay more in the utility bill. So they also have system that can know how much of the cooling came to your room, so that you pay more than the other guy that uses a lot. But the problem is Nigerian builders, which is the problem I've had. Nigerian builders are slow adopters. They're just like, see, the builders are from the people. People don't adopt easily, same with the builders. I mean, when I was marketing LEDs in 2013, 2014, I was saying it then, I said, we now have LED bulbs, but those orange bulbs we used to use then, 3 of them use more energy than your fridge.
Wow.
It was hard for people to understand that this bulb, 3 of them use more than your fridge. Who said fridge? No, fridge is not a problem. Those bulbs are everywhere, 60 watts each. Some people had 20-watt bulbs in their house. So you see a house where the house has 10, 14 bulbs, bulbs alone have got almost a kilowatt. So when we're talking to people, we realize that they would build new houses and still put the bulbs there. Thank God for that LED bulbs have come. They were more expensive then, so it was a cost thing back then.
I mean, you were an LED ambassador back then,
bro. It was a very hard sell. But what baffled me was the big construction companies would build high rises. I don't mention big buildings. The one on Nozumba, a very tall building. There's one at close to Deku there too. Those buildings were built in the LED era and they were fitted with fluorescent tubes. That one, I'm like, but this company is a big company. Don't you guys know it's usually LED? So when I considered for a building at Ikoyi near Osborne there, I also told him, I'll tell you off camera, but it's funny. This one, I met the guy, I said, wait, why are you not using LED? He told me that the client insisted on being able to dim the lights and that the LED bulbs in the Nigerian market cannot be dimmed. And I'm like, why did you just tell him that you can't dim the lights? Put fewer bulbs. I mean, there were ways around it. The other option is import the ones that can be dimmed. That light that can be dimmed, but they're not selling them locally. They cost like 4 times the one that cannot be dimmed. He said, you know what? This client is not that easy to convince. They just like what they like, and So that gave me an insight into why some of them, even though they could have used LEDs, didn't use LEDs. Because that being able to dim was a big deal to them. So, but talking to people, I found out a lot. But Nigerians are generally slow adopters, and that's why they don't adopt evaporative cooling, radiative cooling, double glazed windows. I mean, those ideas are not new. Some people have heard it before, but wait, my brother is 6 million for window. Next time I should spend 12 million for window. Who will appreciate the window? I beg. Do the one, the guy will use this. So that's how it is.
So I think all it takes is one person.
One person.
Really, all it takes is just one person, because the whole craze of solar right now, there's hardly any developer that isn't incorporating solar energy right now. Any builder, even private people building their bungalows wherever, everybody is trying to incorporate solar energy, because it took one person saying this is a solution that can save you running costs. Now, it might cost you a bit more to get it in and set it up, but your running cost significantly reduces over time when you compare it to running on diesel, running on fuel, But another thing I want to ask, on the government side, are you aware if there are any policies or bills in the House or government trends trying to push renewable energy here? Talking about here in Nigeria now.
Okay, so I will start working backwards. I think sometime late last year, Taiwo Idile, who is a consultant to government and tax, one of the things they proposed was centralizing the revenue collection agency. So it's no longer customs collecting. Because the problem we had in the past was government would give you a rebate on something, customs will claim that they're not aware of it, so you just have to pay the money. I remember trying to import lithium batteries about 3 years ago, and I called my agent. He said, "Look, bros, if it's lithium battery, this is what it costs." Yeah. He said, "I won't do it for you, but let me tell you what it costs. I'll tell you what we can do it for you." He said what the customs guy make them go through to import inverter batteries. The only few guys want to do it. So he said it's easier to import even furniture that's supposed to be illegal than to bring lithium batteries. And it was strange. So whereas you see that government is trying to encourage renewable energy, but the people at the customs, they are either directly or claiming to be uninformed or turning a blind eye and turning deaf ears to it. So that's one part. I know that the government has they're proposing making importation of hybrid vehicles duty-free, electric vehicles duty-free. There are things they're doing, but like I said, the real problem comes to the revenue collection. When it's time to pay, even though government says it's 20% rebate, you have to still pay the full money. In fact, and you still pay penalty because you have mind though. You are bringing this thing, you must breach. Let's frustrate you. So that's what it's like. So I cannot say government is not doing. Question is that is it being followed through to the point where the people who need to bring in can benefit from those policies? So far, it's not been. But I think the movement to centralized revenue collection agency, that way, they only have to give insurance to one person. Everybody knows, because if we are paying for client at one place, paying tax at one place, once they hear, they've heard. Not like FRS knows that there's rebates, customs say they're not aware. So hopefully that will improve things a lot. But what I know has been in place since 2013-14 is NERC, that's Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. From 2013, they stopped issuing generation licenses if it's not renewable. Yeah, so if you want to get a power license now, it has to be renewable. However, distribution guys they're fine to go anywhere, but generation license has to be renewable. They stopped issuing since 2013, thereabout. So, and that's 12 years ago. Yeah, but unfortunately,
how much has that been implemented?
It hasn't been, bro. It hasn't been. The truth of the matter is that the more I went into it, the murkier the old setting operated. So those things operate like silos. So they give you a generation license, you can generate, but you still cannot sell. So to be able to sell, you now get a distribution license. Now, for you to be able to sell, you must only be selling in an area that is not presently supplied by a disco now in the present time, and there is no plan by any disco to expand there in the next 5 years. That's a condition.
Oh boy.
So even though you have a license to generate, you still can't sell. So of course, what they've been able to work out was that start working out some agreements where the community will write to disco and say, we need these guys to give us power, you're not supplying us. Then you will come into what they call a tripartite agreement with the community, with the disco and NERC. That okay, we want to supply them power. Then the disco will say, okay, we'll allow you. Then you guys will come to how much you're paying the disco for every kilowatt supplied. It's not going to be free because they believe those support their customers. Even though they don't have cables going there, they're not getting power for 5 years.
Just take them that they are customers.
Look, that rule is weird that the place must not be powered by a disco, or there must be no plan to power it in the next 5 years. It's crazy. It's really, really crazy. So basically, the whole Nigeria is mapped out.
You know why I find it funny? Because I was listening to an interview yesterday, and the interviewer was asking his guests something along the lines of still energy sufficiency and all of that. And the guest was saying that if you generate more electricity than you need, why not sell it? But from what you're saying, that means that if I have a building and I go the way of renewable energy, and I generate more than actually what I need, I can't willy-nilly sell it to my neighbor.
No, you can't.
And say, I have excess. You can get your power from me.
Okay,
I
so
have to go to NERC.
Let me rephrase it. You cannot officially sell it. You can, under the table, have an arrangement. Yeah, because it's important I say that. Now, why is weird is that, of course, they always. So the thing is that they put a cap on it. They say if you're doing 200 kilowatt and above, you need the disco license. If it's below that, but you see, truth, but this is Nigeria. One day, one guy will just amend and say, okay, you know what, 20 kilowatt and above, you have to get a license. So it's not good to place it. That's why it's a lot easier to implement within an estate. The estate is seen as a single entity. So you can then do your building yourself. But if it's on the same street, you can't. So the only way you can start with them is change the title of the building to the same. The same person owns both of them. Then I think you're able to get through. There are workarounds, but they're not ideal. In terms of if you want to scale, you should know that if I have enough excess power, I should want to give my 4 or 5 neighbors. You can't do that right now. Legally, you can do it under the table, but one day, one revenue collector might feel like, we're not making money again. What's happening? They're giving them some power, then they bring a court order, tell you to stop. So yeah, but that's where the solution has to come from. If they really want to drive renewable, it has to be easy to sell your excess power.
Yes.
Yeah, overseas they have what they call exports, so you can export it directly to the grid. Even in Kenya, I think they have exporting to Kenya, South Africa, but Nigeria, it's not easy to do that. Your house is on 220 volts. The transmission line is at 415. The 11 kVA is the one between the station and the transformer. So it's not easy to export. But
Because there's no legal framework.
there's no framework. Yeah, there's no framework to support it. So although it's something we can look into, I think it's almost too late, but it's something that can be looked into. The easier thing would be allowing one person to sell his excess to his neighbor.
Okay.
Without repercussion. That would be easier to
All right.
implement.
Coming down to like a family unit now, I guess people are becoming a bit more energy conscious in terms of how much energy do they actually consume. And I know I've come across like devices you can use in calculating how much energy your freezer uses, how much energy your TV uses, stuff like that. But maybe you can speak on that. Like, I have a home. I want to be able to know what takes the most energy in my home, and so I can manage it
If I knew
properly.
you would actually, if I knew you were going to ask, I would have brought this. It used to be in my car all the time, but yeah, I dropped it. In my early energy days, when I started the early thing, that was how I was able to prove to people that 3 bulbs use more than your fridge, because those things look like adapters. You plug them to a socket and you plug your appliance to it. So it tells what is drawing right now, and if you leave for like 8 hours, it tells you in kilowatt hours how much. So the easier way would be to do an extension, plug an extension to it, and you can tell what everything on that extension is consuming. At 1 hour, 8 hours, 10 hours, it shows the number of hours. And
Okay, that means that the device you're talking about needs to be connected to every single appliance.
needs to be so basically,
house.
yeah. And if you're just, it's not something you use permanently. You're just curious about which one consumes
Okay.
most. So just go, and you can know which one consumes most. Then if you want to know what it has used over a period of time, you can plug it and leave it there for a while. Yeah, that's how it's
So
used.
in Nigeria now, like you spoke about the building in Netherlands, I know you've mentioned Shell, Chevron, and stuff like that. But aside from that, are there any buildings that you have seen and you can say, wow, these guys have incorporated?
Sterling Bank headquarters. Yeah, Sterling Bank headquarters.
Tell me about it. What did
In
they do?
2023, the high-rise building was powered fully by solar, and what it did is, because high-rise buildings they have what they call a low space to height ratio, because it's narrow and tall, so the roof is never big enough to generate enough for the building. Also, high-rise buildings have their chillers on the roof. Sometimes they have the generators on the roof, so they don't have that whole space. So what they did was they used what they call BIPV, which is Building Integrated Photovoltaic. There are solar panels
Sorry, come again.
Okay, so what they used were BIPV, Building Integrated Photovoltaic. Photovoltaic are some panels. Not all panels are photovoltaic, by the way. So there are thermal panels, there are PV panels. So those panels you see are called PV, photovoltaic. There are some other panels that are black that you use with water heater. You might have seen them with tanks. They're called solar thermal panels, STPs. So BIPVs are building integrated. They were designed to stay on the wall, not on the roof. So when you don't have enough roof, you take your wall, you put BIPVs on them,
Okay.
and they're there to generate power for you. So it's a high-rise building. For some weird reason, the bus didn't go round. It was a big deal to me that, at last, one building has done it. Or I think a foreign company partnering with the local company installed it, but they covered it from top to bottom with panels. So that's, in my opinion, that's the greenest building in Nigeria at the moment, because it started running on diesel gen and now it's fully green. And I think a lot of solar Sterling Bank branches are like that too. Also, I heard that Union Bank branches too have solar panels on them. I only saw 2. I can't verify all of them, but someone that worked there said most of the branches have panels. So I think our banks are moving more towards that, because they have a line on their financial sheet that goes diesel, and they can easily see the savings easily. A lot of companies that don't see diesel as a big deal, yeah, they might not do. But if to answer your question, Sterling Bank headquarters in Lagos is the most green. So probably should get a picture of it. I know if you go on YouTube, probably, I know people did a lot of videos about it when it was done. It was a big deal, but We don't know how to blow our horns in Nigeria. Maybe they're being modest. Yeah, it was a bit. If I install that thing, I would have been wearing selling bank t-shirts everywhere for free. Yeah, because it's a big deal. It's that big a deal. That's our closest to the edge in Nigeria.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's get towards the end of this lovely discussion. What is the future of green energy and sustainability? And take Nigeria, for instance. Look into your crystal ball. Yes, solar energy is beginning to take a lot of roots, right, in development here in Nigeria. But look into your crystal ball. What is the future of green energy and energy sustainability here in Nigeria? If we were to go for all the different kind of solutions that you mentioned, give or take, how many years do you think it would take before energy sufficiency, energy sustainability, proper energy use will take root in the minds of people in Nigeria? Maybe as they are increasing power every day, people will start be forced to think outside the box a lot.
Exactly. Okay, so I'll tell you my optimistic guess and then my realistic guess. My optimistic guess is 10 to 12 years. And
Wow.
yeah, 10 to 12 years. And what I think will happen, so let me tell you exactly what I think. What I think will happen is that we will have more IPPs, independent power stations, who will probably use CNG to generate energy, because Nigeria has so much gas reserves that it will drive down the cost of energy so low if we go more CNG. While the remote areas will be powered by renewable energy, mostly solar. I'm not sure Nigeria can have wind turbines. We can't even carry it. We can't manage those things. So incorporated with the national grid, I think IPPs using CNGs particularly will get adoption to the commercial areas first, not because it's a business case. You have to go to where they can pay for it first.
Yes.
While maybe donor agencies or benevolent citizens who want to do this with their homes, hometowns, will then say, okay, look, for this place, let's do 60 kilowatts of solar for them so they have light and charge their phones. Yeah, so but in 10 to 12 years, I believe that these commercial centers particularly will be able to get 20 hours of light. I can say that boldly. I mean, there are conversations I'm part of that some have heard of in that direction. Now, it's not the whole country that will be affected, unfortunately. The commercial areas first, maybe the agricultural hubs, because they have to preserve food too.
Yes.
Yeah, but those remote areas where they seem not to have minerals or anything, God will have mercy on them. Yeah, I can't allow so. Now, in terms of as a nation, when are we going to get energy sustainability or self-sustenance, I think it's closer to 20-25 years. And that's because there's a lot that has to shift in how we approach energy. The call for people to abandon the national grid, they may seem unpatriotic, but they're not too realistic. The national grid has to exist. It's the way to get affordable energy, to be honest. But the transmission has to be scaled up. Now, how quickly that can be scaled up, there's a political will, there's a financial part of it, there's technical expertise. Then we also have issues of bandits sabotaging transmission lines in part of the country. So it's a security issue as well. But if I were to make my estimation optimistically is 10 to 12 years for the commercial areas, then for the whole country, I think 20-25 years, we can have, even in the remote areas, they'll have light. It may not be, they will not have a lot of demand, but there'll be light. There'll be light bulbs, there'll be fans, even for the poor people. I believe that in 20-25 years, we'll be able to achieve that. That's my realistic estimate.
All right.
Yeah,
So
and we'll mix of
finally,
CNG, national grid, and yeah.
okay. So finally, what advice would you give to developers in the real estate sector when it comes to incorporating renewable energy?
Okay, I'll give in order of the costless to the most affordable. Yeah, the costless advice would be to build and have more windows. I mean, it looks like it's a problem, but it looks like the more modern the buildings are, the smaller the windows become. And I know it's mostly a cost thing, it's less aesthetics than cost. Even though I find it worrisome that you see a small living room that will have 3 slits as windows when they can just have 2 bigger ones. So I think they should have more windows, but more south-facing windows. That's it, not just windows. So if your window is facing east, the sunrise, you have beams coming to your house directly. If it's facing west, during sunset, you have beams. So more north and south-facing windows. It used to be a thing that you could orientate your house in a way that less heat comes in. So I think those are things that builders themselves have to look into. How do we plan our estate? Another thing is at the larger estate level, I think we should incorporate more water bodies. Let's have lakes. Because what people don't realize that, what they call sea breeze is a principle called convection, where the sea heats up slower than land and it cools up slower at night. So it causes the dynamics of wind in that estate to move when you have water bodies. So having ponds, having lakes, if you are
Creating
close to
artificial
lagoon,
water bodies.
exactly, creating artificial bodies, yeah. Also, what I would love to see is people who incorporate vernacular architecture, like wind, like I said, wind catchers. Wind catchers are beautiful. There are things I personally want to experiment with, probably at a public school, as the Lord permits. I'm probably going to do it because, knowing that just having something that looks like a chimney on the building can bring the building temperature down from 30 degrees to 14 or 10 degrees, which is below the AC. Something that is good to see. Of course, we don't have chimneys in Nigeria. Your house will look different because while you have a chimney, it's Santa Claus coming, But I mean, we have to look at how we can smartly deploy this. So I'm going so the costlier one is more windows, reorientating your house, adding water bodies. So the cheaper ones are like wind catchers, and of course, radiative cooling, using those paints that reflect infrared. But more and more importantly, better installed doors. Having your flush doors flushed properly will reduce your cost of cooling. If you can't do double glazed windows, having windows that seal properly also add to it. Also, the kind of your roofing. There are some roofs that absorb heat better than others. So if you use those clay shingles roof, it's just like using clay pots. Their temperature aligns more with the weather. So they can be hot in the daytime, at night they also cool faster, So there are things like that. But I mean, something that you can easily implement is increasing the gap between the roof and the ceiling. The bigger that gap, the more heat it can retain, and air it can retain there. So less heat comes to the building. So are things you can do. But I mean, as a home user or a tenant, what you can do is use fan with your AC. Put your AC on 20 degrees instead of 16. So it cuts down the energy by almost 50%. That's a cheap trick you can use. And also understand that there has to be a place that heat goes to. So if you have so many ACs and there's no exhaust for them, they call them like a heat sink. Yeah, that's what heat sink. So you will have problem eventually. The AC starts molding, you start having respiratory illness in the buildings. So design your buildings. Yeah, this is what. Let me just summarize that part. Hire a mechanical engineer to do your AC, to design where you should place them. So it's going to decide that, okay, there are 14 flats here. It will assign a place as a heat sink, and then all the AC heat will go to that place. So the rest of the building can be cool. That's something that, but trying to be cheap, we pay an M&E guy, the electrical guy is doing the mechanical drawing to save costs. It comes back. So yeah. So just simple there are practices in engineering that help you reduce costs. I mean, on a case by case basis, they differ. But I think those are basic ones that can easily be applied without too much thought. Plan your AC very well. Use fans, put them at 20 degrees. You'll cut it down. And then don't use AC all the day. Open the window sometimes, let fresh air come in, Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, one more part. Sorry if I just had to say this.
No problem.
Yeah, for big buildings, central cooling uses less energy. Yeah, I should have said that a lot earlier. Yeah, central cooling. They are more expensive to install, but central AC uses far less energy.
It saves you cost.
Exactly. So if you have 10 split units and they use 15 kilowatts, the split unit that will power that whole place will probably be 4 kilowatts. It's about 60 to 80% less sometimes. Yeah, so that's also key. I thought I should mention that before I forget. Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, so thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I've been speaking with the co-founder of Brainsbridge Energy Limited, Mr. Rotimi Babalogbon, and I hope you've learned a lot. There's quite a lot of food for thought there for those of us in the built industry in how we design our homes, using better technologies and saving costs in the long run. So till next time, this is Square Meter Stories, and I'm your host, Isi Edagese.